Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Belly to Belly. And today we're joined by good friend Allan Rooney from Rooney Law. And our topic today, as you can imagine, is U.S. expansion legal updates. So, Allan, our audience are all companies that are have either expanded to the U.S. from other countries or are going to be expanding to the U.S. from other countries. And so, please, if you wouldn't mind, we want to get into the topic quickly, but if you wouldn't mind, take a minute or two and tell us about Rooney Law and what you do for clients expanding and coming into the U.S.
Absolutely, Bill. Thanks for having me on. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, I guess. We're excited to be here. So I started Rooney Law in 2007. It's a boutique law firm centered out in the New York City area. We have some people around the country as well. And we support a lot of different businesses, essentially with corporate and business law needs. But we happen to get a hell of a lot of those from overseas coming in. Markets like the UK, you might detect my little Brooklyn accent. The UK market is big for us, as is Ireland and Australia, probably number 2 and 3. Then we get quite a lot of Western European and others as well over the years. And having done this for so long, we've helped around 300 companies come in. So I think we believe that we probably have quite a lot of experience in this area and have seen a lot of different businesses across different sectors, as well as fact patterns of market entry and things of that nature. And we support, obviously, the legal needs of those companies coming in, and then try and plug them into the ecosystem as much as we can with introductions and things like that, because they're new to market and they're trying to figure that out and need the support of people like you and others.
Super. So, thinking about the companies that you've seen come in, the some 300, what are kind of the common challenges you see them have in terms of their expansion? Where do they fail, or where are they challenged?
I think that probably falls into two buckets, right? Between legal and business. Obviously, we're all business people. I own a small business, so do you. There's an element of execution risk. Did you hire the right person? Is the timing right? What are the economics of the time? Is it the boom times of 1999, or is it not? Is it very different? So those things can all come in, and then your method of timing, probably a bit of luck as well. There are obviously legal pitfalls that I could speak to in terms of those can be not setting yourself up correctly, maybe making tax mistakes that you're not aware of. I think in the US market, more than many others, you really have to look for advice, and I think that's across the board. It's not just law. It's sort of steering yourself right and not falling into problems, because when you have an error or a problem that in legal in nature, for example, usually a lot more expensive to sort that problem out and fix it than it would have been just to have had that right guidance in the first place. We have had clients with distribution agreement disputes, for example, who sell goods, who maybe if they'd had their distribution agreement looked at and gotten decent advice on it, may not have fallen into the multi-$100,000 litigation that happened 5 years later because of poor drafting and clauses that were very unfavorable to them. Now, again, we all make decisions as business owners. We tolerate an element of risk. But I think it's get that advice, get good advice. Make sure your trademark's sorted out. You might think, well, I don't really care. I'm not B2C. I'm not Chanel. What do I care? But actually, you can get blindsided here by folks that think you're infringing them because they have some registered mark or believe they have superior IP rights to your brand, and it's a likelihood of confusion that can be a little bit loosey-goosey. And unfortunately, there's things like attorney's fees and disgorgements of profits and all kinds of claims you can make. I would go on about this for hours, obviously, but there's just things you don't see coming if you don't get educated on the market. And then I think, if you don't mind, the business side also is how do you crack it? Who do you hire? Do you bring over founders? I think we've seen lots of these, and those that do bring over some of that story from the home country do better in conjunction with US hiring. And also being willing to invest in many ways, right? Salaries and compensation are eye-watering coming from some other markets in the likes of the New York area, right? But the reward is there if you do it right, and you can charge a lot more and all these other things. So it's sort of got to be in it to win it, but you got to speculate to accumulate. You got to invest, and you got to take that financial risk. So having appropriate backing or funding, I think executive bandwidth is a big one. You're like, oh, I quite want an American company. That'd be nice. It would be nice, but don't let London fall over. Don't let Dublin fall over, and make sure you've got someone that can really look after that American effort, because it's going to take time. You got a product market fit. You got getting your brand out there. It's hard to do these things overnight, which is why the likes of you, Bill, are so useful to some of these companies. So I think you have to. There's a whole array of legal and business pitfalls, but I'd say that's a sort of war story that I've seen work well. And also just labor arb, right? You can pay salaries in maybe parts of Europe that are a fraction of what over here, but you can have strong sales here and be doing a good amount of execution in Europe and actually winning that arb. But anyway, sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, it's good. I mean, what you're pointing out are exactly the things that we see, some of the challenges. So it's really good to hear that that shared experience and that wisdom. So, one of the questions, and we do, besides working with scaling companies, we do a fair amount of mentoring, as I'm sure you do. And one of the questions we get asked by the early stage companies, which I'm sure you'll give us all sorts of disclaimers to kind of talk through this, but it's really, when should a company that's in market or coming establish a legal U.S. entity? And there, I can imagine there are probably a variety of cases or use cases here that would precipitate different answers to that. But maybe you could kind of give us a couple of sort of standards that it would help companies.
No, it's a great question, and I get it all the time from the clients themselves, right? Because they're like, well, do we really need it yet? Maybe we could just use an EOR, or maybe we could just come on the plane and things like that. Absolutely true. I think we try and demystify it, first of all, by saying it's not really that big a deal to have an American entity. Not particularly expensive for even us to support on that and do it properly. And then you've got that ring fence of limited liability, which I just think is so important in a kind of crazy market like the US, where there's more litigation, and you might think, okay, then what's my annual cost? Okay, your annual cost is a few grand to the accountants to file your taxes. It's not really a hell of a lot more, especially without a payroll. But I would say, to answer your question in more detail, it's a confluence of factors, right? We got that first contract, that was really good. Oh my God, we're doing amazing with one client, and they've recommended. Or you've got that maybe linchpin European relationship with Intel's a bad example right now, but I did have a client that did very well with Intel, and they were like, well, you need to go talk to them in the Valley because you're wonderful, right? And it was a marketing agency, right? And then you've got that sort of hot or warm intro, and you can go leverage that, and maybe you hire around that one. You've got the quote unquote business case everyone talks about. You don't want to be doing it in the wind and for no reason, but maybe someone on your team's spouse is moving over with KPMG, and suddenly they've got a visa for free, right? Mm-hmm. And then we've had opportunistic ones like that where they're like, okay, they're moving to Atlanta, let's set up a Georgia entity and see if Paul can make a go of this. And then so you've had those sorts of things. But again, I just demystify it and say it's just not that big a deal. And if it doesn't work out, you can always dissolve the entity later. And I just like that ring fencing. And there's unknown risks, like I was talking about in the last question. Like if you're running around signing contracts, you've got someone on payroll, maybe you could be sued here because the parent could be sued, not the entity that's the subsidiary, and you want that limited liability. Or you could potentially trigger a permanent establishment, which is a tax presence here, but you don't really know about it, whereas you can make sure the sub is actually the tax present entity, not the parent company. There's a very good treaty between the likes of most of the Western European countries and America to repatriate dividends at very good rates, withholding rates, things like that. So it comes back to do it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and it's we for years have kind of said somewhat. I think probably the same thing without the benefit of legal education, just from having great friends like yourself. But it's one of those things we immediately say, talk to an attorney, because this is not our domain. But here's as we understand it, kind of the arguments either way. And no, I think what you said is perfect. So thinking about, again, going back to the 300 companies you've worked with that are expanding, obviously they're all aligned on the continuum of, kind of most successful or wildly successful all the way down to maybe it didn't catch fire. When you think of the most successful ones, what would you say are the kind of the common attributes of the founders of those companies? What did they do that was similar that you think kind of fed into that?
I think it's perhaps the founders, and most of my use cases would probably be British founders. to some degree Irish and others. I've seen and I've seen just an amazing amount of entrepreneurism from that area, making me think that everyone back there must be an amazing entrepreneur. But I think I'm getting a selective funnel of characters. And some of them, as you said, they become great clients because they succeed here and they're using us often for many years. Others we never hear from again. And I don't know if they worked out or what, but I think the ones that do well embrace the sky's the limit attitude of the States, right? It's when I came here as I was a 20-year-old exchange student in law school, and I was like, this place is amazing. Are you kidding me? Like the opportunity here, like the you can just it can be done. American positivity is the single best thing about our country, right? I'm long a citizen now, and I think people might knock us and say we've got issues, but what country doesn't, right? And I think that it's an amazing opportunity, and those that really embrace that, then those that come in and say, wow, and also leveraging like they quite like my accent or not or whatever, right? Just whatever you can use, to get in the door and get a bit of trust and build with people. And then I'd say it's the people that realize the opportunity and do not and don't diminish themselves or make too many self-deprecating jokes. Like it's very UK humor to be like, well, I'm an idiot anyway. But it's not, and it's funny, but it's not the way Americans roll. And I think there are these cultural differences that you can possibly fall afoul of without really knowing it. You're thinking it's just humor, and others are like, whereas here people might be a bit more bullish about themselves and a bit more bullish about their products. Now, people might think that's because there's a lot of BS, and maybe there is, but I think that there's a way to really convince people. I think most, at least in New York, people are willing to give you an opportunity. They're willing to give you. Might not give you an hour meeting, but you might get 5-10 minutes on the phone, and if you're interesting to them, they might be like, you know what, let's reschedule more time, or go on, or come in and see Jeff. And I do think you don't ask, you don't get. So you got to be okay with rejection, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. No. How many no's does it take to get a yes? For sure. You got to be ready for it. Well, this has been great. I think both from the standpoint of looking at kind of the success, what's really creating success of companies coming in, getting some sense of when we should form, all those are really key. Well, could in terms of any other parting words, in terms of things that you would sort of suggest companies look at?
No, I mean, I think it's there's a broad amount of things you could say on that, right? There's just it's a lot of what we see and do, and people like having friends like you in the ecosystem, and a lot of us kind of know each other, and I think if you hit that kind of unofficial network of support, it's good because those people know, for example, perhaps the middle market solution for that, which isn't big four prices or something, you know what I mean? Which because maybe you just don't. Maybe one day you'll need that, and that's wonderful, but you don't at the moment. And these guys are really good, and they're all boutique people. So you've got to know people in the marketplace, get that advice, ask for introductions. Americans are very willing to do that. In my experience, like I'm looking to meet this kind of person, and then it's almost like a little tree branch, right? Then that person introduces you to three more, and suddenly you've got. And again, it takes time, but and tenacity But I'm a big believer that it's worth the opportunity over here.
Well, and I think what you just said and what I kind of reading between the lines is you have to be really clear about what you need, right? As you're meeting folks like yourself, is you're not just talking about maybe the legal questions you have, but also we're also looking for an accountant. We're also looking for X or Y, and being able to use the power of that network. And so often I see companies that don't have that sort of short list of here are the next big sort of rocks we need to overturn, and so they can't really empower the network to work.
Yes, and some of the good people at the government trade desks are good as well. The likes of the DBTs in the UK example, Enterprise Ireland do a great job. There's equivalents in most of these countries that you've got a desk you can talk to, and if there's someone there that's been in market for a while and can start plugging you in, it's all about that. And get over here, get over for a visit, a sales visit, a trade mission, get a feel for it. You're not going to do it from back home, not successfully anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Allan. This has just been fantastic. I really appreciate you taking the time today. And is it okay if I put your contact info in the description box below?
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much to you, and thank you for the time with you. And